function, and its function is its motion. Even so, the mind neither moves nor functions.
The belief that the mind holds about itself is that it is very responsible, that it must take care of a lot of things. It takes itself to be the center of the universe. The statement that you quoted is in two parts. Movement is the function of the mind, and then the mind neither moves nor functions. The first part pertains to the mind's idea of itself. What does the mind think of itself? The second part is the reality. The second part is what is realized when the mind is witnessed. You are a puppet. You don't really have it in you to originate action. But you can be full of a lot of doership. You can be full of a lot of belief of self-importance. I am the mover, I am the shaker. I do it, and if I don't do it, it won't happen. You can take a lot of responsibility upon yourself. You can give yourself a lot of credit for a lot of things. You can swell up in pride, having decided that you have been doing and achieving. And then you also have to bear all the tension when things don't go as per your planning and wishes. That is the story of the mind. To realize that the mind neither moves nor really functions, but is instead just an aggregation of tendencies that are really energized by something beyond themselves, is not easy. Even though it is evident that this is how things are, yet to accept this, to acknowledge this, is to acknowledge that one does not exist, is to acknowledge that one really has no power of initiating anything, that one cannot be the root from where life, movement, and action originate. One finds that humbling. And if you are not humble, then to be humbled is to be humiliated. One does not want to take that humiliation. One wants to continue saying, I move, I function, I make mistakes, then I correct myself. The entire process of spirituality is to come to a point where you can see what really moves and what is it that really stands still.
But the butcher creates karma by slaughtering animals.
Oh.
How can they be Buddhas?
Oh.
So, while explaining, he says in a sentence, once a person realizes his original nature, he stops creating karma. So, creating karma and non creating karma. I actually some.
Karma will continue. Karma is movement, karma is action. There is no difference between two individuals in this dimension. It doesn't matter whether you are a Siddhartha Gautam or a most ignorant person. You act. You are seen to be acting. The body moves. There are thoughts. There are all kinds of changes associated with your mental physical system, and all of that is movement. Then what is the difference between a Buddha and someone who is living in darkness? The difference is that for the Buddha, there is just karma. There is nobody who considers himself the owner of the karma. Karma is there, karta is not there. When karma is there, without the karta, without the doer, without the owner, without the one who likes to seek credit, then karma is spontaneous. Then karma is pure. Then there is action without the actor. And when the actor is not there, then there is nobody to bear the result of the action. You see, action and actor are two very different things in actually different dimensions. Action is a fact, actor is a concept. Action is a fact, the actor is a concept. They are not really related. And if they are not inevitably linked or related, then it is possible that one can exist without the other. In the case of the Buddha, action exists without the actor. And it is possible that in the case of an ignorant man, the actor can exist with action and wonderfully sometimes even without action. there might actually be no action happening. If you check the facts, you might find that little or no action is happening, yet the ignorant mind has burdened himself with the concept of actorship. If you look at him and ask him, but where is the action associated with the actor, he won't be able to produce any facts. There is nothing really happening on the ground, but he is still burdened with a lot. And what is that lot? That is just a concept. If you look at it, you find it amusing. The Buddha does so much without ever talking of himself as the doer. And then there are others who do nothing and yet feel the weight and pressure of doership. The more you feel the weight and pressure of doership, the more difficult it becomes for you to actually do anything. Your movement is arrested. Your limbs are paralyzed. Because in your mind, a lot is happening, whereas actually, nothing is happening. This is the bane of doership. And then you also realize the bliss of Buddhahood. What is that bliss? So much is happening and it is creating no burden, no mark, no residue, no weight upon you. It is as if you are transparent, you are resistanceless, you are weightless, and action is flowing through you. It is as if you are a superconductor and charge is flowing through you. There is no resistance, so there is no heat, no dissipation of energy, no change. That's the quality of the superconductor, right? It does not change when confronted with movement of charge. Movement happens in its own place, the superconductor remains in its own place. It does not offer any friction. It has nothing to do with the movement. It says, you go through me. I'm transparent. I'm not concerned with you at all. You want to pass through me? Pass through me. I'm neither supporting you nor inhibiting you. And you will pass through me, leaving behind no trace. You would not have changed me, I would not have changed you. Ordinarily, when through a wire current passes, both change. Current changes and the wire also changes. How does the current change? It gets diminished. How does the wire change? It gets heated up. A Buddha is like a superconductor. He does not want to affect the action, the charge passing through it. He says, you happen. You want to happen, you happen. Who am I to interfere in your movement? You did not come from me. I very well know that I am just a conductor. I am just a passage. I am just a tunnel. You are passing through me. Does the current originate in the wire? It comes from somewhere else. Its origin is somewhere else. But the wire has a tendency to unnecessarily meddle in the affairs of others. It says you might be coming from somewhere, but because you are passing through me, so I'll quarrel with you. I'll try to do something with you. I'll try to modify you. I'll try to leave my stamp upon you. I'll try to do something that establishes that I am something. How can you pass through me as if I am nobody? Resistance is the ego of the wire. If you are passing through me, then let's talk first. This is my area. You have to pay the toll. This is my road. You're passing through it. Come on. 5%, 10%, 20% of you must diminish. That is what is called transmission losses. That's the ego of the wire. The Buddha has no such ego. Action exists, actor does not exist. Yes? And when, opposed to the Buddha, you are an insulator, then there is no movement but a lot of tension. Think of a perfect insulator. Nothing will pass through it. The more the resistance of the wire increases, the less is the possibility of anything passing through it. And the less is the possibility of anything passing through it, the more you see the wire heating up. It will become red. And it will destroy itself, it will melt down in its attempt to keep resisting. The Buddha is cool. Thousands of amperes passing through it, the Buddha is cool. And then there are the others, inhibitors. Nothing passing through them, and they are red hot. If you ask them, but sir, what is happening through you? They will say the only thing that happens through us is that we let the entire potential drop. One end it is 1000 volts, at the other end it is 0 volt. We only inhibit. We are capable of nothing. And because we inhibit so much, our life is a mess. Our life is all mangled up. We are on the verge of breakdown. Depends on you. What do you want? Action without acting, or a lot of acting but no action. Probably you feel the temptation to quickly say, we want a lot of action without being the actor, because you see the benefits there. You see the benefits there in this moment because this is a meditative moment. But remember that a price has to be paid. The price is that you will not be able to claim the action as your own. It will be very clear that the action is coming from somewhere else. It will be very clear that you have not disturbed, not interfered. It will be very clear that you have not tried to put your own authority on the action.
When you say it will be very clear to a non-Buddha, like me, that action is coming from somewhere else. It seems to be unbelievable. It seems to be, if that be so, then why is the state of affairs like this?
Where?
With me, with my own life, all the actions, you seem to be creating a lot of heat, but not a lot of action, which I also sense in me sometimes. You carry the whole burden of the world on you when I am discharging my own duties. And you realize that if you think too much, you talk too much, then very little happens on the ground. And yet you are left with that kind of feeling, I really want to have peace in that, this thing is clear to me that action is coming from somewhere else, and I must dedicate this action to that. What is that movement?
It is just a movement of fearless faith. You see, even to believe that the action is coming from somewhere else and I am just a pass-through is to keep one eye on the action. On one hand, one doesn't want to have anything to do with the action. On the other hand, one is suspiciously keeping one eye on the action. In fearlessness, action is so beautiful. And it is emerging in such a perfect way that you feel no need to meddle with it. Why do you want to take ownership? Why do you want to manage the action? Because you are afraid that the action would not be proper without your involvement. Right? What if you see that the action is not only proper but more beautiful than what you could have ever imagined? What then? Would you still feel the incentive, the urge to go ahead and tinker with it? It's happening and happening beautifully. Now, if you really want that beauty to remain and sustain, won't you just keep away? It's a matter of just being sensible. You want to walk, and the walk is happening just rightly. Do you still want to think about your thighs and the length of your step and the ground underneath your feet? Do you still? It's all happening so rightly. And when it is happening rightly, that rightness continues. It's that first moment when you have to let it happen. And if then, afterwards, you have even a little intelligence, you do not interfere. You begin with it and you see and you say, wow, this is more beautiful than anything I have seen ever. And not only is it beautiful, this beauty is a burdenless beauty. It's a double benefit. First of all, it is better than what I could have thought of. Secondly, it's not taxing me. It's not asking for my energy. It's not asking for my planning and preparation. Now, why, in my good sense, would I then want to temper it? The more you let it happen, the more the suspicious mind gets an incentive to let it happen. More and more proof starts getting accumulated. The mind works on proofs. The mind demands arguments. The more you start living in that causeless beauty, the more is the force of the evidence that starts accumulating. The mind now cannot go back to its old doership. There is the evidence now of a lot of data. Look here. You let it happen and it was wonderful. Now why should we not give it another chance? See, we tried it 3 times. And 3 more times it happened on its own. And has it not been beautiful? Now come on, you can't deny the obvious. Mind will have to reluctantly agree. Yes, I think, yes, of course. But you know what? 6 times is just too small. The 7th time, it may go totally bad. You say, but you see, 6 times is not nothing either. Okay, yes, all right. I agree. I agree to give it another chance. And then the 7th, and then the 8th. And then you see that the mind is slowly falling in line.
But there is, from this walk from point A to point B, there is that hurt, there is that pain, there is that demon that you keep talking about. And the prize is the prize of ego, perhaps, that comes as a journey from A to B and A to C, C to D. When you are on that bigger choice that you take. And probably that doesn't make the journey beautiful. Right? When I hear you say it's so beautiful that you walk along this path, slowly mind will come around, slowly mind will come around. But actually you bleed on it. And that bleeding is perhaps the ego, right now.
Yes, of course. We are both talking in terms of stories, but these stories are helpful. You see, it's like this. There is Anhat, right? You danced for hours yesternight and must have been 4 degrees or 5 degrees, maybe lower than that. And the dance was beautiful. In those moments, there hardly was anything that bled. Maybe in the beginning of the dance, you felt some pain. You felt the chill. Once you were into it, it was just a spontaneous flow. So far, so good. Till 3 a.m. you are busy giving yourself the best of times. Then you fall asleep. And when it's time to wake up, you find that the nose is blocked. There is a lot of cough. That is when the bleeding starts. There was that little boy who danced. And then here is this grown-up, mature man who bleeds. And the man wants to tell the child, see, this is what happens when you act irresponsibly. Why couldn't you think? Why couldn't you see that this is so foolish? Now you see how the man is bleeding himself out. The man is busy castigating the child. The man is busy proving the child that idealist actions are to be avoided. All right? The man does whatever he can. He admonishes to his mind's content. This is where the bleeding is happening. And then comes another night. And the dholak. is again sending out that rhythmic invitation. The child is dancing again. Now where is the bleeding? Now where is the bleeding? The bleeding is in that period when the action is being investigated. In the action, there is no bleeding. When you are dancing, where is the reproach? When you are dancing, where is the regret? You start regretting after you go to bed. And after you go to bed, you might be a totally different man. Then you may look at the mirror and say, how silly of me. They took me for a ride and I gave my consent. Sometimes I really go bonkers. I really shouldn't have agreed. No sane man would agree to dance in this terrible weather without any rhyme or reason, in the dark, with no purpose, with no defined movements. Utter madness. I'm sorry I did it. That is when the bleeding is happening. It did not bleed when you danced for the first time. It did not bleed when you danced for the second time. It never bleeds when you are dancing. It bleeds when you are thinking about what you did and planning about what you do next. Does it ever bleed when you are dancing? Later on, you may look at the floor and say, my goodness, I bled so much. And of course, the floor might be stained with a lot of blood. But did it really bleed when you were dancing? Remember, bleeding is not about the blood that flows down. Bleeding is about whether or not the mind registers that blood, whether or not that blood is material, important. So I'm asking you, does it ever bleed when you are dancing? It bleeds later on. What if your dancing goes uninterrupted? When then would you get the time to bleed? Please. When then would you get the time to be analytical, clever, introspective, reflective? When then would you look at the entire recording in hindsight? Because there is no hindsight now. There is only this moment. There is no break from this moment to look at the previous moments. There is only this, and there is a continuous dance. Who now has the time, the opportunity, the luxury, and the total foolishness to look at the floor? It's all dark. Who wants to turn on the lights? The music is continuously on. Who wants to stop the beats? And if the music does not stop, who bleeds? Even if you bleed to death, you still haven't bled. Later on, the doctors and all the wise men may keep saying that he died because of excessive bleeding. But you would know in your heart that you did not bleed a drop. You just danced. You just danced. Who was bleeding? I was not. I leave it to the occupation of the wise men to declare that there was a lot of blood. For me, there was no blood. So if you come to the way of the Buddha, then you are really left with no responsibility but one. The way of the Buddha is the way of shunning all responsibility. You are left with then just one and final responsibility, which is to never to leave that way. Because if you leave that way, you will find that you have been bleeding. And that would be very, very painful. If you enter that, stay there. And if you have intentions of quitting midway, then don't enter at all. Every time you quit, you will quit with a lot of regret. Every time you go back to those old patterns of thought, you will have a lot to repent about. You will say, you know what, I wasted those last 2 years. You didn't waste that year when you were flowing in the Buddha river. You are wasting this year now that you are out and dry. And once you are out and dry, the wetness, the flow, the madness, the frenzy indeed appears quite foolish. It would feel foolish, definitely. Once you are out, you will have all the reasons to say that the dance, the flow, the time in the river, the madness of the night was nothing. But the mind gone bonkers. You would say, I do not know how I could let that happen. Probably I was hypnotized. Once you get in, don't get out. A great punishment awaits those who get out after getting in. And you could not be more unfortunate than if you decide to enter with the objective of exiting. It is the exit where the curse lies. Not in the flow, not in those moments that you are to later label as insane.
I'm just thinking that you're saying that the question that emerges is that even people walk on this path, you quit also midway and come back.
It is possible.
Because one would assume that if
No.
this stage had happened, one would have been so showered with that thing that there's no question of going back.
One is showered with all the beatitude. But what if one is not wise enough to realize a blessing as a blessing? A lot of gifts come your way, but what if you do not know the value of those gifts? And even if you know the value, what if you do not have the gratitude to say that you are indeed lucky that you got those gifts? One needs both wisdom and gratitude in ample measure in order to continuously stay on the path. And it is not very often that one has both of these. Wisdom to know the value of what you are getting, and gratitude to say that you are indeed humbled that you got these. Stay put. Stay put. Once you enter madness, stay mad.
This burden of the cross that you keep bearing as a responsible person of your life, and which carries on with the kind of society you live in also plays a role in that. And certain ways of being, you are conniving, you choose, you exclude possibilities, you apply, you plan, you execute things, you choose to do things. That way of being, just letting it go, to me is the biggest challenge. That is what you're asking.
Please see whether you have an image of what it means to let go. We said charge flows uninterrupted. Action happens uninterrupted. And action includes planning, action includes execution, action includes thought, action includes everything that the mind and the body are designed to do. Not doing is not about doing a few things differently. Not doing is not about doing other things. Not doing is not about doing new things. Not doing is not about not doing a few things anymore. Not doing is about letting the doing happen, not pushing the doing. The doing involves all shades of doing. You have nothing to do with the constitution of the doing.
Pushing the doing would mean what? Give me an example.
Being afraid about the action, being jittery about the action, being nervous, feeling the need to meddle. Things happen in their own way, in their own due time. The nervous man, the impatient man, the fearful man feels the need to push and pull. Almost like trying to pull a flower out of the bud. Would you get a flower? Would you? Or trying to push a baby out in the 6th month. Would the baby thank you for it? Things happen beautifully, nicely, in their own due time. You are not required The mother is neither to start pushing in the 6th month, nor is she to block the appearance in the 9th month. What is she to do then? She has to just let the child take birth through her. Do you see the superconductor here? She has to just let the child take birth through her. Both ways she'll end up killing the baby. Pushing in the 6th month, the baby is killed. Blocking in the 9th month, the baby is again distorted. Now, does that mean that she has to perform another kind of action? No, nothing. If you ask me, sir, then is the mother left with any role in childbirth? I leave it upon you to decide. Yes, of course there is a role. But what is the quality of that role? The quality of that role is belief and trust and love.
You cannot know your real mind as long as you deceive yourself. Yes. How am I deceiving or not deceiving right now?
If this question is arising, you are certainly deceiving. Now you go and figure out in what way you deceive. In certain matters, if you are doubtful that something is going wrong, then the doubt itself is the proof that something is indeed going wrong. Had nothing been going wrong, the doubt couldn't have arisen. To your credit, you are acknowledging the doubt. Hence, you will get an opportunity to go beyond what is going wrong. There is only one thing that could be worse than this situation. That is to not even admit that the doubts are popping up. There are many who do not even admit that they are doubtful. They'll say, no, we are sure, everything is all right. Now that you know that something is indeed amiss, your responsibility now is to figure out what.